The night felt different. It wasn't the usual quiet that came after a long day of classes and mundane conversations. No, tonight the air was heavy with something I couldn't quite name. Something just beyond my reach, gnawing at the edges of my mind. My heart, which usually beat in the steady rhythm of routine, thudded nervously against my chest. I kept glancing at the clock. It was well past midnight. And yet, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, trying to ignore the pull in my chest. The feelings were growing, and I couldn't understand why. What had shifted? I had been through this before, familiar feelings that just didn't add up. But this felt different. Outside, the wind whispered against the window pane, a soft hum that seemed to echo my thoughts. The room was dark, save for the faint glow of my laptop screen, which cast eerie shadows across the walls. I should have been asleep. It was a Friday night, after all, and the weekend was finally here. But there was no escaping the tension in the room. Across from me, on the other side of the room, was my roommate, Sam. We had known each other for what felt like a lifetime, ever since our freshman year. Shared classes, late-night study sessions, and more than a few inside jokes. We had become a perfect pair over the years, or so I thought. But tonight, everything felt off. I watched Sam, their silhouette barely visible in the dim light. They had their headphones in, focused on something. Maybe a show, or just the quiet rhythm of their thoughts. Yet, something about their stillness unsettled me. I didn't know what it was, but there was a change in the way I saw them now. Every time they moved, my heart raced a little faster. It was as if the walls between us had suddenly grown thinner, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what was about to unfold. I tried to ignore the thoughts in my head, the confusion, the growing awareness. Maybe it was the way their laugh sounded a little too perfect, or the way their eyes lingered on mine just a second too long. Maybe I was imagining it. Or maybe, just maybe, I had been blind to something far deeper than I could have ever anticipated. But the truth? The truth was I was scared. Scared of what these feelings meant and what would happen if I couldn't make sense of them. Because tonight, of all nights, was when everything seemed to be spiraling into something unrecognizable. Something I couldn't escape. I took a deep breath, trying to push the thoughts away, but they only grew louder. What if this moment, this very moment, was the turning point? The beginning of something I didn't know how to handle. Something that would change everything. I wasn't sure I was ready to find out. We had always been close, Sam and I, ever since the first day of freshman year when we were assigned as roommates. There was an undeniable connection between us. I remember how nervous I was about living with someone new, not knowing what to expect. But Sam made everything feel easy. Their laugh, the way they always knew how to break the silence with a joke or a casual observation, it was comforting. We fell into a rhythm almost instantly, and it felt like we had known each other for years. Our friendship quickly blossomed. Sam wasn't just my roommate, they were my confidant, my partner in crime. We'd spend hours talking about everything, from childhood stories to our deepest fears about the future. Our late-night talks became rituals, sometimes in the dim glow of our desk lamps, other times sprawled on the floor with a bowl of popcorn between us. It was during these quiet moments that I realized how deeply I valued our bond. Sam understood me in ways that no one else did. They knew when I was anxious without me saying a word, and they knew how to calm me down with just a few simple words. We shared so much. Our love for old movies, our obsession with certain TV shows, and even our quirky habits. Sam had this incredible ability to find the most obscure memes and send them to me, and we'd laugh for hours, sometimes at the most ridiculous things. I always admired their confidence, their ease in social situations. Sam could walk into any room and instantly make friends, while I often found myself holding back, unsure of how to approach new people. I relied on them in ways that were almost instinctual. They were my grounding force, and I was theirs. But as close as we were, there were times when I felt a strange tension between us. It wasn't something I could put into words, but I could sense it. Little things, Sam's gaze lingering a little longer than usual when they looked at me, the way their smile seemed to carry a different kind of warmth when we were alone. I convinced myself I was imagining it. After all, we were just friends, right? Friends who had been through everything together, good and bad. But the longer I ignored it, the more undeniable it became. There were nights when we would stay up late, and Sam would look at me in that way, as if they were waiting for me to say something, to do something. It wasn't like we'd never had intimate moments before, late-night heart-to-hearts about relationships, or the occasional hug when one of us was going through something difficult. But this felt different. I wasn't sure why or how to explain it, but every time Sam's hand brushed against mine or our knees accidentally touched, I felt something shift inside of me. It wasn't the typical warmth that came from our close friendship. It was something deeper. And I hated how much I didn't want to acknowledge it. I tried to push those thoughts away. After all, it was silly. Sam was straight, or at least I thought they were. We had talked about relationships before, and there was never any indication that there was anything beyond friendship between us. But then why did I feel this pull? Why did it seem like every time they laughed at one of my jokes, my heart would skip a beat? Why did the simple act of spending time together suddenly feel charged with an electricity I couldn't escape? It wasn't just physical either. There were moments when we'd talk, and I would catch myself staring at Sam, completely caught up in the way they spoke or the way their eyes lit up when they were passionate about something. It was like everything they said was suddenly amplified, more important. And I couldn't help but feel an ache in my chest whenever they smiled at me, something that went far beyond what a friend should feel. I tried to act normal, to not let it affect me. After all, we had such a strong friendship. I didn't want to ruin that by complicating things with these confusing emotions. But no matter how hard I tried to bury it, the tension between us kept building. Sometimes it felt like the air was thick with unspoken words, and other times, it was the simplest touch that would send a wave of heat rushing through me. A casual pat on the back, a hand on my arm as Sam passed by, it was all too much. Every touch, every glance, felt loaded with meaning, and I didn't know how to handle it. The more time passed, the more I realized how much I depended on Sam. Their presence had become a constant in my life, like a comforting song that played in the background of my thoughts. But this feeling, the one that had started out as a faint whisper in the back of my mind, had become louder, harder to ignore. I began to wonder if Sam felt it too. Was I just imagining things? Or were there moments when they looked at me the same way I looked at them? And if they did, what did that mean for us? Could we keep going on like this, pretending everything was the same? But as we continued to share our lives with each other, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Our friendship, which had always been so comfortable, was shifting in ways I couldn't fully understand. There were moments when I thought Sam knew what I was feeling, and it terrified me. What if they didn't feel the same way? What if this changed everything? I didn't know how much longer I could pretend everything was normal. I didn't know if I was brave enough to face the truth. But what I did know was that whatever was happening between Sam and me, it wasn't just a fleeting feeling. It was real. And I had no idea what to do with it. As the days passed, I began to notice the subtle ways our relationship had begun to change. It was almost imperceptible at first, like the tide coming in. Slowly, almost without me realizing it, until one day I woke up and realized how much had shifted. At first, I chalked it up to stress, finals approaching, the usual chaos of our busy lives. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. Something between Sam and me was different. And it wasn't something I could ignore anymore. It started with the small things, the way Sam's gaze lingered a little longer when we made eye contact, or how they'd sit just a little too close to me when we were studying. There were moments when I'd look up from my notes and catch Sam watching me, their eyes soft but intense, as if they were seeing me in a way they hadn't before. I tried to brush it off as my imagination running wild, but each time it happened, I felt that familiar knot in my stomach, a mix of excitement and anxiety that I couldn't shake. One afternoon, we were sitting on the couch in our shared living room, our usual spot to relax after a long day. I was scrolling through my phone, Sam was flipping through a magazine, and there was a comfortable silence between us. Or so I thought. Out of nowhere, Sam let out a small sigh and looked at me, their expression unreadable. "Are you okay?" I asked, not expecting a serious answer. Sam usually brushed things off with a joke or a sarcastic remark, but this time they didn't. "Yeah," Sam said, their voice quieter than usual. "Just thinking." "About what?" I said, glancing up from my phone, suddenly feeling that familiar weight in the air between us. Sam hesitated, and for a moment, I thought they might just laugh it off. But then they set the magazine down, and their eyes met mine with a seriousness that made my heart skip a beat. "I don't know," they said slowly, their voice softer now. About us, I guess. The words hung in the air between us, thick with something I couldn't place. I tried to hide my surprise, but I couldn't help the rush of emotions that flooded through me. My stomach tightened, and I felt that familiar heat creeping up my neck. Was this it? Was Sam about to say something that would change everything? Before I could respond, Sam's expression shifted, as if they realized they had said too much. They quickly looked away, a nervous laugh escaping their lips. Forget I said anything. It's nothing, Sam added quickly, picking the magazine back up and pretending to scan the pages, though I could tell their mind was elsewhere. But I couldn't let it go. There was something in the way Sam had said us that felt heavy, as if they were thinking about something more than just our usual friendship. My mind raced, and I found myself overthinking every interaction we'd had over the past few weeks. Was this the moment I'd been dreading? The moment when everything came to light? I didn't want to ask, didn't want to push Sam into a conversation neither of us might be ready for, but my curiosity and anxiety got the best of me. I couldn't stay silent. What did you mean by US? I asked, my voice sounding smaller than I had intended. Sam looked up, and for the first time in what felt like forever, our eyes locked. There was a hesitation there, a flicker of uncertainty in their gaze, and my heart began to pound in my chest. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next, but I couldn't look away. Sam's lips parted, but no words came out. The silence stretched on, both of us caught in a moment that felt infinite. I don't know if I should say anything, Sam finally murmured, their voice barely above a whisper. I don't want things to get weird. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Things already felt weird. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe it was just me, overthinking every single moment we spent together. But I couldn't deny the tension that was building between us, the unsaid things that had begun to feel like a wall between us, even though we were sitting mere inches apart. I don't want things to be weird either, I said, my voice shaky. But Sam, I can't help but feel like something's different. Between us. Sam didn't say anything at first. They just looked at me, their eyes searching mine as if they were trying to figure out if I was serious. I didn't know what I was expecting, whether they'd laugh it off, get angry, or maybe even agree. But what happened next caught me completely off guard. Sam let out a long breath and ran a hand through their hair, a nervous gesture I had seen them do only a few times before. They shifted in their seat, their body language becoming more closed off. I think I've been feeling it too, Sam admitted quietly, their voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to do with it. The admission hung in the air, and my heart raced as I processed their words. For a brief moment, everything in me wanted to shout, to say that I knew exactly what they were talking about, that I wasn't the only one who had felt the shift. But the words caught in my throat. What if I was reading too much into it? What if Sam was just confused? We don't have to do anything, Sam, I said, my voice calm but with an edge of uncertainty. We can just figure it out. Together. As friends. But Sam didn't seem convinced. They looked away, their fingers fidgeting with the edges of the magazine in their hands. Yeah, but what if it's more than just that? Sam asked, their voice almost lost in the silence that followed. What if it's something else? I didn't know how to answer them. What was this feeling between us? Could we really go back to being just friends after everything we had shared? The weight of their words pressed down on me, and the reality of what we were both feeling began to settle in. The dynamic between us had shifted in ways neither of us could ignore anymore. Whether we liked it or not, something had changed, and neither of us knew what to do with it. But one thing was clear, everything was about to change. There was no going back from this. The tension between Sam and I had been building for weeks, but it all came to a head one late evening when everything we had been avoiding finally exploded into the open. The moment seemed inevitable, like a storm that had been slowly gathering strength until it could no longer hold itself back. That night, we had spent hours in the kitchen, preparing dinner together, our usual routine after a long day of studying and running errands. It was supposed to be a normal evening, the same as any other, but something felt different. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, with that same lingering tension I'd noticed before. We were in the middle of cooking, when Sam dropped the knife they had been using to chop vegetables with a soft clink onto the counter. It wasn't a loud noise, but it startled me, breaking the otherwise comfortable silence that had settled in the room. Sam's back was to me, their shoulders tense, as they stared down at the knife. I can't keep doing this. Sam's voice cut through the quiet, so soft I almost didn't hear it. But when I did, my stomach clenched. What do you mean? I asked, trying to sound casual, but my heart was already racing. I knew in that moment that whatever was coming next would be important, maybe life-changing. Sam turned around slowly, their eyes meeting mine for the first time all evening. There was a vulnerability there that I hadn't seen before, as though the walls they had built up around themselves were starting to crumble. I don't think I can pretend anymore, Sam said, their voice trembling slightly, but there was an intensity in their words that made my pulse quicken. I've been feeling something for you for a while now, and I can't hide it anymore. I felt like the ground beneath me shifted. My heart skipped a beat, then started racing in my chest. Everything I had been avoiding, everything I had been trying to deny, Sam had just said it. They were feeling the same thing. I didn't know what to do with that information. Was I supposed to say something? Was I supposed to keep this calm, or did I have permission to feel the rush of emotions flooding through me? What are you saying, Sam? My voice came out strained, unsure of how to respond to the storm that had just been unleashed. Sam's face flushed, and they looked down at the counter, their hands gripping the edge of the counter as if they were trying to hold themselves together. I could tell they were struggling, their emotions conflicting with the words they wanted to say. But there was no turning back now. I think I've been in love with you for a long time, Sam confessed, each word heavy with the weight of truth. They didn't look up at me, but I could see the way their shoulders hunched, the way their chest rose and fell with each breath. They were waiting for me to react, waiting for me to say something, anything that would tell them how to move forward. The words hit me like a tidal wave, washing over me, leaving me breathless and disoriented. Sam had been in love with me? I had always known there was something more than just friendship between us, but hearing it out loud, it was more than I had ever expected, more than I had ever been prepared for. My mind was spinning, trying to catch up with what they had just revealed. I didn't know how to respond. The shock was overwhelming, and for a long moment, I stood there frozen, just staring at Sam. They looked up at me, their eyes filled with anticipation, fear, and a quiet hope that made my heart ache. They were waiting for me to say something, anything that would give them some sense of direction. Sam, the words stuck in my throat. I had so many things I wanted to say, but none of them seemed to come out the right way. I wasn't sure what I was feeling. There was confusion, excitement, and fear all swirling together inside of me. I don't know what to say. Sam took a deep breath, their hands shaking as they turned away from me, the hurt and disappointment clear in their posture. I could tell they had braced themselves for my rejection, that they had expected me to pull away, to say that we couldn't do this, that we couldn't risk everything we had built as friends. And part of me wanted to say those things. Part of me wanted to retreat back to the safety of our friendship, where everything was clear, where there were no complicated feelings to sort through. But I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. I couldn't deny the way my heart beat faster when they looked at me, the way my thoughts lingered on them long after we'd parted ways for the night. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel, I whispered, my voice almost drowned out by the silence in the room. I didn't expect this, Sam. There was a long pause. Sam didn't move, didn't say anything, and for a moment, I was afraid they were going to walk away, to shut themselves off completely. But then slowly, Sam turned back to face me, their expression unreadable, their eyes brimming with uncertainty. I know it's a lot, Sam said softly, their voice thick with emotion. I know this changes everything. But I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I had to tell you. The weight of their words pressed down on me. Sam had just opened up about something that had been weighing on them for so long, something that had been eating away at them in silence. And here I was, standing in the middle of it, unsure of what to do or say, paralyzed by the enormity of the situation. For a long time, I stood there, silent, my heart racing as I processed everything. There was a deep ache inside me, a mix of longing and fear, and it seemed like every possible response was tangled up in that feeling. Sam was waiting for me, vulnerable and exposed, and I knew I couldn't keep them in this limbo forever. Sam, I finally whispered, my voice barely audible as I reached out, my hand trembling slightly as I touched their arm. I don't know what this means for us. But I'm not rejecting you. I just need time. It wasn't a rejection, but it wasn't an affirmation either. And for Sam, it wasn't the clear answer they had hoped for. But in that moment, I could see the relief on their face. Maybe it wasn't the closure they had wanted, But it was a step, a way forward, even if it was uncertain. We were both standing on the edge of something we couldn't quite name yet, unsure of how to navigate the complexities of our feelings. But one thing was clear: the emotional confrontation had come, and from that moment on, neither of us could go back to pretending we didn't feel what we did. The days that followed were a blur of awkward silence and quiet tension. Sam and I had agreed to take things slow, to not rush into anything. But even as we agreed to that, it felt like the weight of our unspoken feelings hung between us, thick and almost suffocating. We continued to live together, to share space, to talk about trivial things, the same as we always had, but everything felt different. There were moments when I would catch Sam's gaze across the room, and I would feel that familiar pull in my chest. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to say anything more, to push forward or to pull away. It wasn't easy. The mornings felt the heaviest, when we were both getting ready for our respective days, brushing past each other in the kitchen or bathroom, avoiding the eye contact that we once shared so comfortably. At times, I thought I could feel the lingering presence of our unspoken feelings in the air, a constant reminder of everything that had changed. But other times, it felt like nothing had changed at all, like we could go back to being the same two people we had been before, only pretending that things weren't different. It wasn't that simple, though. One evening, I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone, lost in thoughts. Sam was at the table, working on an assignment, but every so often, their eyes would flicker toward me, and I would feel the weight of their gaze on my skin. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for, but I knew something needed to happen. I could feel it in the way we were both avoiding the conversation that had yet to be finished. When Sam finally set their pen down and stood up, I didn't need to look up to know they were coming toward me. It was the way the room seemed to hold its breath before they spoke. "I've been thinking a lot," Sam said, their voice calm, but with a tremor underneath it, something that made my heart skip a beat. "About what we said. About everything." I put my phone down slowly, sensing that whatever came next would change the delicate balance we had been trying to maintain. There was a part of me that didn't want to hear it, didn't want to face the reality that this could lead to something more complicated than we had both expected. But there was another part of me, a quieter voice inside, urging me to listen, to hear Sam out. "I don't want to rush you, I don't," Sam continued, their voice softer now. "But I need to know where we stand. I need to know if you're just as lost in this as I am, or if I'm the only one feeling like this is going somewhere." I met their gaze, finally letting the truth settle between us. The truth that I wasn't just lost in it. I wasn't just pretending to be confused or unsure. I was just as tangled in this as they were. But there was something I hadn't yet said, something I needed to voice before I could let us move forward, whatever that looked like. "I am lost, Sam," I said quietly, my voice almost a whisper. "But not in the way you think. I don't know what this means yet. I don't know how it's all going to turn out. But I know. I know I don't want to lose you." Sam's eyes softened, and I saw the weight of their own internal conflict flicker across their face. There was relief there, but there was also something else, something fragile. "I don't want to lose you either," Sam said, their voice barely audible. I just don't know if we're ready for this. If we're ready to change everything, even if it means risking our friendship." There it was. The heart of the matter. The thing we had both been avoiding. It wasn't about love or attraction anymore. It was about the risk. The risk of ruining what we had, of pushing ourselves into something we couldn't take back. "We don't have to decide everything tonight," I said, trying to steady my breathing, trying to keep my voice steady even though my heart was pounding in my chest. "But I think I want to see where this goes. I want to try. I don't know if we're ready. But I'm willing to find out." The room was quiet for a long moment. Sam didn't move, didn't speak, and I wasn't sure if they were still processing what I had just said or if they were debating their own thoughts. But when they finally took a step toward me, something in their eyes changed. The uncertainty was still there, but it was mixed with a quiet understanding, a shared sense that we didn't need to have everything figured out right away. "I don't know what the future holds, but I'm willing to find out too," Sam said softly, their voice tentative but open. "And I'm scared, honestly. I'm scared of what this means for us. But I'm here. And I want to see what happens next." I nodded slowly, feeling a small sense of relief settle over me. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a definitive answer to all the questions swirling in my mind. But it was enough. It was enough to know that Sam was willing to take the next step with me, even if neither of us knew where it would lead. For the next few weeks, things remained uncertain, but in a way that made everything feel more real. We spent time together, learning how to navigate the shift in our relationship. There were still moments of hesitation, moments when we weren't sure how to act or what to say. But there was also a quiet sense of understanding between us, something that had been there all along, even if we hadn't been ready to acknowledge it. Eventually, the tension between us started to ease. We still had awkward conversations, still stumbled over the words we didn't know how to say, but there was a new honesty between us. We no longer had to hide behind the walls of friendship, pretending that we didn't feel something more. And while neither of us had all the answers, we were willing to walk through it together. To see what happened, to take the risk of changing everything, because at the end of the day, we both knew one thing: we didn't want to let each other go. The rest, we would figure out as we went along. As I sat on the couch, Sam beside me, both of us lost in our thoughts, I realized that maybe there were no guarantees, no clear path forward. But in that uncertainty, in that open-ended future, there was something beautiful. Something raw and real. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be.